Hi, and welcome to this presentation on World War II and its aftermath. This is the final of 3 presentations dealing with the aggression, appeasement, and the advance of the Axis. These are notes 13.3c, and this is, of course, Mr. Marx. Hitler has taken over pretty much all of his enemies to his east, so he immediately changes his attention over to the west. He begins in 1940. First of all, there was a little bit of a lull after the 1939 invasion of Poland, and that 1 month, by the end of October, Poland was entirely under Nazi or Soviet control. England and France are immediately just going to start digging in their lines. The Maginot Line, if you remember, that strong defense system that France had set up on the French-German border, it's represented by that green line there. They're going to set up and they're going to really hunker down. They're going to make sure that all of their supplies are in place. They'll start digging trenches behind it just in case they need to do any kind of reversal. They cement their guns in place so that their guns cannot, should the Germans overwhelm the line, their guns can't be turned back in order to face onto France itself. The British start landing their troops there, and they start digging their trenches in as well. All of this is largely in fear that the Germans are doing the exact same thing on their line. This is this kind of silent war that's going on between them during the winter of 1939 into 1940. Now, Hitler knew that that's what they thought he was going to do, and so he actually sends engineers to the German side across from the Maginot Line within sight distance of the French, and he has them build these cement bunkers. It looks like he's putting his artillery pieces. It looks like he's getting set up for a long siege as well. It's all a fake. The cement bunkers weren't made out of really sturdy materials. What they thought were artillery cannons and such were just long pipes going out. You see, Hitler was planning to do what was done in World War I. If the defenses are really strong right there on the French-German border, he's going to go around them. And that is what happens when France is invaded in the spring of 1940. First, Germany attacks the Netherlands, and then Luxembourg and Belgium. They go forward, and you can see they go to a second line. Part of the line's already behind the Maginot Line. From those positions, they then regroup, build up their supply lines. And one of the reasons why they go after Netherlands and Belgium is they didn't want to leave anybody behind. They already don't worry about the Soviet Union due to their peace treaty with them. They've got, well, Hitler, it's going to turn out, is worrying about them. They have all of the territory to the east, so they don't want to leave anyone behind them that might be able to launch an attack or be a staging area for attack against Germany. So they take out all of them. Once they've consolidated, they then move forward into France itself. They have moved around the Maginot Line, and they've just crushed over the other defenses. Everybody was expecting trench warfare. And here, these planes, they go in, and they just bomb the heck out of the trenches that have been set up by the British and the French. And before they're able to recover, these tanks literally just roll right over them and move around. The trenches are useless. The armies are finding themselves in full retreat at this kind of advance, and behind them those soldiers are coming in and setting up the Nazi supply lines. Now the Maginot Line becomes kind of its own trap. They had cemented those guns in place to make sure that the Germans couldn't use them against them, but now they can't turn them around in order to face this new German force, and the Germans are able to just come up from behind the Maginot Line and take it out. The French and British armies are in a rout. Only one small highlight occurs during this time. The whole thing starts in April 1949. Okay? In May, these German forces are pouring into France. The British forces, all of their defenses are for nothing now. They're in full retreat, and they're trapped. They're trapped in France, with the English Channel blocking their escape back to Britain. Britain simply didn't have the navy ready well enough in order to make sure that people that they could ship all their troops across. Britain sends out an all calls on the radio, asks for any British ship, any British boat, anybody with a rowboat to go and help the troops get across the English Channel. And this will happen at that narrow area by a small town called Dunkirk. In this desperate gamble, they get all naval vessels that they can, merchant ships, even fishing boats, even pleasure boats, yachts, everything. And they pick these stranded troops up off the beach. Despite German air attacks shooting down at them this whole time, and you can see kind of the crowded ships and boats and soldiers just swimming out to them there, more than 330,000 troops are going to make their way safely to Great Britain. Had this not happened, the British army would have been broken, and Hitler would have been able to easily take over Great Britain in response. On June 22nd of 1940, Hitler manages to avenge the German defeat of 1918. He has taken over Paris, and he forces the French, the French government that's been left in place, though a group of French have escaped over to Great Britain. He'll force those that have been left behind to sign surrender documents to him in the exact same railroad car that Germany had been forced to sign the armistice at the end of World War I. Literally, he hunted it down, made sure it was intact, and then brought them to it because he saw it as a symbol of what was going on. Now, interestingly, this will then be taken to Berlin as a museum, into a museum, in order to show their overall power. And as our Allies forces will later on start winning World War II, the SS will actually destroy the railroad car to make sure that the Germans can't be forced to sign their peace treaty or to sign their surrender in this car once again. Following the surrender, Germany will now occupy all of northern France, but will grant a level of autonomy to the French that are in the south. In the south, the Germans set up a puppet state, and if you remember, like the Manchukuo for Japan, a puppet state is a government which is supposedly runs itself, but actually must answer to the demands of its parent state. This free zone, the southern zone, is called Vichy France, and it's named after its new capital because Paris is in the occupied zone. The city of Vichy will be put to use as this new government. Meanwhile, some French officers who had escaped to England are going to set up a government in exile there. This will be led by the General Charles de Gaulle, and they'll call themselves the Free French in order to differentiate themselves from the Vichy French. They're going to work to liberate their homeland. And within France itself, a resistance movement is going to start using guerrilla tactics against the German forces. Meanwhile, Benito Mussolini has not been doing as well in Africa as he would like. The British are putting up quite a bit of fight over their territories in northern Africa. And so the Nazis are forced to kind of divide their attention. Instead of Hitler being able to go right after England to begin with, he has to help Benito Mussolini now in Africa. So they're going to send troops down through Italy and into northern Africa and try to sweep and take control of all of northern Africa, making it so the British won't be able to get any connections to any of their colonies there. The Nazis will be massively successful where Mussolini was not, and this is largely due to one man. His name is Erwin Rommel, and that's Rommel. His nickname becomes the Desert Fox. Uh, he's sent down in September of 1940, and he takes control of most Nazi operations in North Africa. From 1940 through 1941, all the way through most of 1942, he wins victory after victory without a single defeat. He manages to push the British out of Egypt. He pushes them all across the desert. He pushes them into Cairo and then south of Cairo. He basically manages to set up Nazi dominance in northern Africa. Now, this sets up a picture where now northern Africa has been conquered. Europe is almost completely conquered. The only territories which aren't under Nazi control are either neutral or they're not directly connected to the continent of Europe, like Great Britain. Only Great Britain is now standing in the way of this massive movement. The Nazis and the fascists look like they've won. And since Mussolini was not successful and the Nazis were, it looks like the Nazis have control of absolutely everything. That's the situation that is seen as as we get into 1941 and some vast changes that will take place.